In this tutorial, we'll look at how you can use the tools within Logic to use labs in creative ways. First off, let's have a look at which labs presets that I'm using by opening the plugin using the track window here. In track 1, we're using percussion, and if we press the link button here, we can then skip to the next plugin by clicking on the next track. You'll see that I've loaded up the new synth strings, and we've got the Opia sub bass providing the bass track underneath. So let's have a quick listen to what it currently sounds like. The first thing that I want to do is put slightly more movement in the bass. To make the bass track sound more interesting, we can use one of Logic's MIDI effects called the Arpeggiator. We can either play this using the live function here, which attaches each note to a sequencer, or we can sequence a grid if we want to vary the velocity layers. We can select a different velocity by enabling each number on the grid here to determine how long we want the sequence to be. We can then change the velocity by changing the levels of the grid here. And without the arpeggiator, I can then save this using the save tools in the menu here and recall some of the patches that I've made earlier. Here's a crescendo patch that I've made, which slowly increases the velocity as we go along. And now when we play that in the context of the whole track, we have a much more interesting bass line. The next thing I'd like to do is to make the synth strings line a bit more interesting, and this is what it currently sounds like. We can help glue this to the drum track by using sidechain compression. So to do this, I need to first separate the bass drum from the track here. I can do this by duplicating the plugin, holding down Alt on my keyboard and dragging the track below, and then lassoing all of the cymbal notes, and then selecting delete on my keyboard. We can then go back to the original track and delete the bass drum from the original here. Once we've set up the bass drum track, let's rename it so we don't get confused. And then we'll head over to the synth strings track here, where we can load up the compressor. Now that we've loaded up the compressor, the first thing we need to do is switch to sidechain mode. From the sidechain menu here, we'll then select the track that we want to affect the compressor. In this case, we're using an instruments track, and we're going to be using the bass drum track that we've just created. Now if I solo the bass drum and the strings track, this is what it currently sounds like. You can see that the bass drum is now activating the compressor, and to make this a little bit more obvious, we can decrease the threshold and then take down the makeup gain to make sure that we're not overloading the track. Now when we play the track in full, and finally, if we open the mixer window by selecting Command and 2, we might also want to copy the sidechain compression over to the synth bass track by holding down Alt on our keyboard and dragging the plugin over to the bass track. Now both the synth track and the bass track will be using the sidechain compression that we set up with the bass drum. And that just gives you a rough idea of a couple of the tools that we can use in Logic to expand our creativity with labs.
Thanks for watching Spitfire Clips. Let us know if it was too long, too short, too fast, or too slow in the comments down below. Hit like if we answered your question, and subscribe for more clips, tips, tricks, and exclusive Spitfire content.